Hey everyone, Andrew Park, Partner Solutions Architect here with AWS, and welcome to Howdy Partner. This is a show where we like to highlight a lot of the cool things that our partners are doing in the industry today. And today we have Pulumi, and I have two new friends that I haven't streamed with before. And so today we're going to talk to you about infrastructure as code, why infrastructure as code is important, why you should use declarative languages and not just things like YAML. Yeah, it's going to be a good show. So with that said, I want to introduce my two new friends today. David, Kat, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having us. Nice to meet you, chat, as well. I assume there's some people in the chat who will say hi eventually.
I think they're a little shy. We'll
That's
give them
okay.
time to warm
I'll get
up.
over it. I'll get over it. Me and David can talk at walls, like basically forever. So, or just each other. David's Scottish, so.
I know I've been trying to talk. I couldn't work the unmute button, but I'm getting better.
Is it your first day?
Yeah, it's my first day at school. So, be nice to me, please.
Nobody bully David. Don't bully me either, but David's a peach, so we're going to try extra hard not to bully him. But hi, Andrew. Thanks for having us. Hi, chat. Thanks for watching us. Hopefully, we're both entertaining and informative for you today. Yeah, we're going to start by talking a little bit about what infrastructure as code is and what it means specifically from a Pulumi perspective. Then I'm going to show you a little bit of code from a tutorial I wrote a while back so that you can follow it later if you want. I'm going to show you only part one. There are two more parts. It gets a little bit more complicated. And hopefully we will get a chance to talk about Kubernetes some, which is my secret specialty and David's very not secret specialty. It's fun for both of us to talk about. But infrastructure as code just means handling all of your infrastructure deployment, testing, standing it up, tearing it down, updating it, using code. You may be familiar with tools that do this with something that looks like YAML or just like actually straight up is YAML, which does the job, right? Like it'll get her done. But you lose out on a lot of things that you can do if you're using an actual programming language, like, loops or whatever. And Pulumi allows you to do that in a language you're probably already familiar with. So if you wanted to stand up a Kubernetes cluster and chuck it on EKS and deploy an application to it, you can do that with Pulumi in, like, depending on the complexity of your cluster and your application, anywhere between like 70 and a couple hundred lines of Python or TypeScript or C# or Go or whatever your flavor is. I mostly write Python. I can write Go. I'm not happy about it, but I can do it. David, however, writes more Go than I do, and also TypeScript. So I will be talking from a Python perspective, but David may chime in with a hot TypeScript or Go take. So
yeah, I think each language has its advantages depending on what you're trying to do and what you're comfortable with, and it's fun to kind of balance those out and talk about what we like about each. So we'll try and do that as we go along.
Yeah, happy to. But I like tools like this because I'm a very lazy developer, which means I'm not necessarily a good developer, and I'm not sure that there is such a thing as like good programming. Frankly, I think all programming is bad in one way or another. But tools like Pulumi allow me to get more done for less effort with my bad programming, and that's I think what we're all here for in general. I don't want to do more work than I have to, and personally, I'm willing to do a lot more work at the beginning of a project to make sure that I don't have to repeat myself later on, and Pulumi make sure that I don't really have to spend much time futzing around with my infrastructure later down the line. It's just there. Like I trust that it's there, that it's deployed, and that if I make a change to it in my code, it is going to happen that way. I didn't trust it at first because it's so fast. So if you have never tried Pulumi before and you go after this and follow this tutorial that I will open up in a second, and you go Pulumi up, and it says that it created the resources, it did. And I know that sounds like a ridiculous thing to say. Like I shouldn't need to tell you that, but it's just like I can't get over how fast it was the first time I did it. And this is a very simple example. This is deploying a like single page like static website to S3 with some like CSS and stuff. So it is about the most simplistic example we can get of a Pulumi program, but even more complex applications are so lightning fast that it can be a little bit uncomfortable, at least for me. So let's.
You mean
David,
like when
you
you've
have
been
anything?
working on code for ages and it compiles first time and you're like, what the fuck? Like there's no way that like
There's
no way
no way.
that's right. And then
There's
it's
no
right.
way.
And you're like,
Or when you do a live coding demo, right? Like you spend all this time putting together this like live coding demo and you expect live code demos to go wrong, like right? Like you always do. You think something it's not possible. Something is going to go wrong even if you just ran it like 5 minutes before you walked on stage or started the stream or whatever. Something's going to barf. And then the one time that it doesn't, you're like, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't trust that even a little bit. So let's look at some code. So there is a blog article up on the screen that contains the first part of that tutorial, which is what I'm going to be talking about. If you would like to follow along while I'm talking about it, you can try, but probably better to just like sit down and read it later on. There are, like I said, 2 more parts that follow it that add like containerization and deploying it to ECS. And yeah, if you are in the chat and you have questions or comments or whatever, throw them at us. You will not interrupt us or make us feel out of place, derail a train of thought or whatever. We can handle it as we go. So let me share my screen real quick.
Oh, and as she's getting that set up, I remember when, the only tools that were available were like CloudFormation and Terraform. And when CloudFormation only had support for JSON and just writing those long templates in JSON, I just remember just when I was like getting into this space and just my mind was just so numb after just like trying to just dive into JSON for hours and hours on end. And so it's really cool that like there's tools like Pulumi now where you don't necessarily have to deal with that problem anymore. Because yeah, when I was first getting into this space, like it was painful. You know what I mean? And so this just makes it so much more enjoyable, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like I know that like YAML is human readable, and that's one of the arguments for it, right? Like it's very easy for a person, a normal human, to read YAML and understand what's going on, but white space errors are so easy to run into.
For sure.
It's like there isn't a consistent schema for YAML, so like it doesn't really translate from tool to tool as easily as you would think. And it might look the same, but it's not because there's a white space problem. And it's just like so extremely frustrating to me. I disliked YAML before I worked at Pulumi. It's worth mentioning that. If you go back through my Twitter account, it's pretty easy to find like old tweets from before I worked here of me like publicly, loudly complaining about YAML.
I know, you and me both. You and me both.
Similar complaints about JSON, though I used to be a web developer, so JSON bothers me a little bit less. I guess I'm just like super used to it. But anyway.
What do you write your Kubernetes benefits in JSON or YAML?
Unfortunately, YAML. I was just mad about it, David. I was just mad all the time.
I thought you might be going rogue and using JSON, and I was just going to like shoot that down right away.
One of my friends does that. He doesn't actually know Kubernetes very well, but he kind of got like stuck doing it for work. So like half of my text message history with him is like tech support pretty much. And he forces JSON and it is a little bit obnoxious to look at, but it makes it easier for him to understand. So it's a whatever works for you. Personally, programming languages make it easier for me to understand, hence this, but let's talk about some of this a little bit first. So Pulumi organizes into projects, and there are different ways to like arrange this. You don't have to have your infrastructure code in the same directory as your actual application code. I do for like ease of organization, since most of my projects are small. They're like either demos like this or they're dumb side projects that I nerd sniped myself into at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. So it's easier to just keep everything compact. But what we have here is a requirements.txt, which, since this is Python, is going to contain all of our prerequisites. In this case, it's just Pulumi. This is a like super simple example here. And then we have our website, which is super small. It's just a single page HTML application with some CSS. It's not very fancy. You'll see it in a little bit. And in this main.py, we have everything that is going to deploy this website for us. So we're configuring an S3 bucket, and it has an index document of just index.html. That's all that our website is. So it's the whole website. But some of this you can change with Pulumi config values. So if you wanted to change the content directory as a configuration value based on whether you're working out of the dev Pulumi stack or the prod Pulumi stack or testing, you can do that, and it just gets passed in as an argument when you run Pulumi up to stand up your infrastructure and deploy your application. That gets used a lot for secrets as well. But this isn't a whole lot of code. We're just looking for a file in our directory. We're setting a public read policy for the bucket, getting the bucket name from the ID, assigning a policy to it, and exporting this so we can see it. It's very, very little code. And what we get on the Pulumi side, I ran this from my terminal, but this is what it looks like in the Pulumi SaaS backend. These are those two outputs I defined there. So the name of the bucket is its ID, and then we get this website URL, which is over here. So not a whole lot of Python deploys this little thing, cute little single page personal website. I like to think it's cute, but I don't know. I'm not a web designer. So chat can tell me if this is ugly or not. Got an opinion, chat? No, chat doesn't care. That's fine.
Just give them a little time. They'll start chirping.
They'll warm up. It's okay if they don't. But this is what a super simple application looks like. More complicated applications can get like kind of ugly. This one isn't doing like a whole lot of anything, right? It's creating like one or two resources. This one is going to barf. It's still running, but this is a larger operation. This is trying to destroy the version of this that is standing everything up in a container and deploying it to ECS. And this is a considerably more complicated deployment. Let me grab the angry one. I think it's on dev. That's part 2. That's a destroy. That's a replace. So in each of these, you get a little preview of the changes that are occurring, which with really complicated applications can be kind of critical. Some of these will end up having like 20, 30 resources if it's a complex enough application. So the ability to look at a diff and a summary of what's occurred, whether it's just an update or a replace, or if it's a delete, like this one is 18 unchanged and 1 updated, that can make it way easier at a glance to figure out when something is going wrong. But part 1 of this, you can stand up very quickly by yourself. The blog article linked in the, let me drop that in the, David, can you drop that in the Twitch chat, actually? So people
I just dropped it in.
Yeah, it's there.
Oh, okay, cool. So if you want to follow this yourself, part 1 is just static sites and AWS S3. So this is going to walk you through step-by-step building a single page personal website and configuring an S3 bucket and throwing it out there. But there is a part 2 and a part 3 of this blog. Part 2 walks you through doing this locally in a Docker container. So you containerize your application, add a few more pages to the website. Part 3 does all of this on ECS. So you get a little bit more scale out of that. The next in this series will be doing it with Kubernetes. So I know that it's kind of a joke to deploy your personal blog to Kubernetes. Like, it's over engineering in a really extreme way, to the point of kind of like being funny. But I think it's actually an important teaching tool. Blogs are something that we're all like, most developers at some point have tried to build a blog, right? Or tried to build a personal website. It's a thing you do when you're learning. Personally, when I'm learning a new language, one of the first things I do is build like a CRUD app with some kind of like web interface. And taking a tool that's like super familiar, like building a blog article or blog or a website or whatever, and then deploying it to something you're not familiar with, that makes it a little bit easier to wrap your head around if you're already like intimately familiar with like one half of your thing. So Kubernetes might seem very complicated and difficult to you, and it is complicated, but I think that part of that is that we teach it badly. So doing something like using Pulumi to use a programming language you're already familiar with to deploy an application you already know how to build to Kubernetes is I'm not going to say easier way to learn, but there's less friction involved, for me at least. See somebody asking, how does Pulumi compare to Ansible and Terraform? I can't answer for, I don't use, how long has it been since you've used Ansible, David?
Man, it's been a long time.
A couple of years.
Couple years.
Yeah, I was always on the salt stack bandwagon, so
yeah.
I tried Ansible and went, this isn't for me. We can definitely talk about the differences. But first, I feel called out. Like, I do run my blog on Kubernetes, so
I know. I know. My personal website is on Kubernetes too. My personal website is on Kubernetes, and it's like, it's
overkill. It's completely overkill. But
it's totally overkill. It is for sure to do that. But I don't know. Once you get familiar enough with a tool, like, it is so much easier now for me to like write a Pulumi project and containerize an application and like chuck it on EKS than it is for me to deploy a website in like a way a normal sane human would do it.
Yeah, I mean, my cluster's already there, so I mean, I might as well use it.
Right?
You may as well use it. Just put something on it, and then if for some reason you get crushed with traffic, you can scale more easily. Like, I can't really imagine a universe in which your website would get like hugged to death. But
if I had double digits one month, I'm having a good month. So
yeah.
I just point out as well, like, you showed off the Pulumi portal there,
Mm-hmm.
the SaaS backend. Like, that is free for solo developers. So like, if you want to use Pulumi and not have to worry about where to keep your state, like, you can just sign up at pulumi.com and it's
yeah. It's worth noting, y'all, that like, while I am a Pulumi employee, this is my personal Pulumi account. Like, this is not tied to my work email address, and I'm not paying for this. So like, anything you see me able to like look at in here, you can look at and see that too, with a free account. So there's yeah, this is all available for everybody. Ooh, here's one that barfed. So that's cool. I think I like slammed my laptop shut while I was trying to do this. Yeah. Yeah. So I have like two super unruly cats that have been a major problem today. And one of them was trying to like climb all over me, and she almost pulled my laptop out of my lap. So I like slammed it shut. And I think this is where it barfed trying to delete a tool. But that's not a huge deal. You just go in and like export the stack, which is the last state of what was going on in that stack. Make sure it looks okay, and make any adjustments. So in this case, I'll need to see if that like EC2 instance is still up in my AWS console. If it is, leave it there. If it's not, delete it from the stack export and then re-import it and run Pulumi destroy again, and it'll pull it all down. So this is it looks like a scary error, but it's not actually difficult to unravel. So if some kind of like Pulumi action does get interrupted and it involves cloud resources, it's an interruption of maybe like, I don't know, 30 seconds to go look at your AWS console and see whether or not that one resource is still there and then adjust. This was one of the first things I learned to do, making a mistake when I was learning Pulumi in the first place, how to deal with like imports and exports of stack state. But yeah, all of this you can see in a free account though. So this is not a thing that costs you money. But we probably should answer the how does Pulumi compare to Ansible and Terraform question. The most obvious way is that you are using a real programming language here. So you are using, in my case, Python or TypeScript, Go, any .NET language. Are we allowed to talk about upcoming releases? I don't think so.
No. I mean, I don't know what release you're talking about, but I'm not sure. But I think what you're saying there about this being a real programming language is really important. Like if we think about using Terraform and Ansible in this way, Ansible provides like a YAML interface to the resource graph. Terraform has HCL. Like one of the powers of being able to use Python or TypeScript or Go is that we can build our own abstractions by moving things behind a function. And then if we want to create an EKS cluster with 2 ALBs and ELB, persistent volumes, an RDS instance, like you can design that one abstraction and stick it behind create my thing as a function and then just call that. And you can ship it with PyPy or NPM or even just as a GitHub Go module or NuGet for .NET. Like being able to share and reuse and compose all of that is almost a superpower eventually, once you start to understand the Pulumi way.
Yeah, it's just an easier way to think for some people, not for everybody. It is for me, it is for programmers. I think an important aspect of this is it kind of, from a DevOps perspective, we like to say that we're like tearing down silos, right? And that it's like bringing the devs team closer to the ops team. But the reality is that what we have now is kind of, it's not that we don't have silos, it's that we replace the silos with a fence. And now we just like chuck shit over the fence. Dev and ops don't necessarily collaborate as much as I would like to see them collaborate. A lot of the like dev stuff is still pretty alien to a lot of ops people and vice versa. So tools like Pulumi kind of cut a window in the fence. Like the fence is still there, but we can pass stuff between each other, between teams a little bit more intuitively, especially when you're using a language like Python, which is very human readable. Most people can at least kind of read Python. So it feels a little bit more friendly. And that's my opinion. But I came from a developer background, not an ops background. And David, did you come from a more opsy background than me?
Yeah, ops and SRE.
Yeah.
Much, so
we have very different backgrounds and both ended up liking this tool more than the alternatives we were using before. But it's worth noting that David and I are both very careful to not like trash talk our competitors because that's rude.
Well, yeah, the important thing is that developers and operators are building their applications and platforms with infrastructure as code. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what tool they use to do that. They're going to use the one that's right for them. But we want to make sure that people are adopting this kind of best practice and making sure their infrastructure can scale and grow with the organization, whether that be Terraform, Pulumi, or anything else. So.
Yeah, this is just my preferred tool, but what works for you works for you. I will say that Pulumi does have an AWS native provider, so we generally have feature parity on new AWS features within like 24 hours. It's generally faster than that. It's sometimes within a couple of hours, but it is within that day that we have parity with an update on AWS's side. So that is an advantage. From my perspective, there are several native providers, but that is a big one. And then it's just you have access to real programming tools, which is
being able to open your Pulumi program and take advantage of all those extensions you've got in Vim, Emacs, VS Code for the autocomplete, the language server. Like for me personally, they just make my life easier, and I write my infrastructure faster. And that's one of the reasons I've always been drawn to Pulumi for sure.
Yeah, I don't have to leave an environment. I don't have to do any like context switching, right? Like my brain stays in the same mode, whether I'm writing my application or like updating my infrastructure. This also means that you can test your infrastructure in CI, which is not as easy to do with other options or straight up not possible. So that's also a thing if you like testing everything under the sun. I do personally, because I'm a big fan of continuous deployment, not continuous delivery. I think having a human press the deploy button is actually a safety blanket and not real reliability. And you should automate that. And if you test everything, you can. So that might be a hot take that I take some shit for on Twitter. But that's okay. I've said it on stage before, so I'm not ashamed of it. Oh, hey, the AWS channel has tokens. What do they do? I'll just highlight my message.
I've actually never used the token before, so this is actually news to me, and I actually use the channel. So
yeah, there's channel tokens, but they don't do anything other than highlight my message.
Yeah, I'll have to dive into that after this and see if we can actually have those tokens do something.
Yeah, get some more fun stuff. Get some emotes in there.
100%.
Yeah.
Just taking a step back real quick. So, like a lot of people I talk to that are new to Kubernetes, especially from a developer perspective, like there's this like notion that like it's just kind of like magic and it'll just like fix all your problems. But I think the three of us would argue that it is the exact opposite. So would you go as far as to say like with a tool like Pulumi, like could it be like the marriage counselor between like your ops and your developers? In the sense that like, oh, like I can actually like define this stuff using the language that I want to use. Like I don't have to like submit a ticket to my ops team and have them figure this out for me. Because I've talked to so many people that like run this issue, whether it's on the developer side or like the operations side, where they're like, oh, like why isn't it working? Like I push my code and just nothing's working. Or like from an ops perspective, like, oh, like my dev teams, they just don't get it. You know what I mean? So like, would you say that a tool like Pulumi could potentially fix that issue?
Between ops and dev, I think maybe I can see ways in which it would make it worse and ways in which that it would make it better. I do think it's important that developers have like some kind of understanding of what Kubernetes is and what it does for you, but they don't need to be experts. They don't need to know how to actually like use Kubernetes. They don't need to know how to administrate a cluster, but they do need to understand like what it is before this is useful, and rather than just a problem for like the entire dev team. It also depends on the developer, like
for sure.
It depends on the developer and like what their specific job is. Some developers are much, much closer to the infrastructure. And in that case, yes, Pulumi is absolutely like super duper helpful. Some devs are so far away from the infrastructure that they don't know what a container is, which is okay, to be clear. Like there's nothing wrong with that. There was a time when I didn't know what a container was, and there are days when I wish I didn't know what a container is. So there's totally nothing wrong with not being on this side of things. But I think there will be a little bit of like a growing pain situation where developers have to, who may not normally touch these things, have to do like a little bit of like surface level learning of like what these things are and how they connect to the application. But after that, then yes, I think it smooths the waters considerably.
I guess I've got slightly different opinion, which I'll share. Is that I think the single most important tool in relation to your question was Docker, right? Because Docker, Kat was talking about that throw over the wall and then having a fence with a window, and like Docker really was an enabler here, where it gave the developers the ability to produce an artifact that the ops team could run as long as they had a container environment to run it in. I think what Kubernetes does is provide the API then that makes that a little bit easier to automate. Like we have the ability for developers to say, I want a deployment that has this many replicas and a horizontal pod autoscaler that scales based on these conditions. But the operational side is completely different. Like operators need to worry about admission controllers and etcd databases and all this other hard stuff. So Kubernetes kind of gives us the ability to segment and distribute those responsibilities, but at the same time give us a common API of which we can all work with, which I think is really, really cool. Yeah. And then Pulumi makes working with all of these tools nice and easy as well, right? Like being able to open VS Code and tab my way through a Kubernetes resource that, of course, I remember none of the spec is just a breeze, because I can just say tab, okay, what are my options? Tab, what are my options? The next thing I know, I've got a deployment. So.
Yeah, except I don't use VS Code, which is an ongoing battle between me and Maddie, because he does. But yeah, it is easier for me to like read my cluster configuration in like code than it is in some random YAML file, especially once I start getting like cloud providers involved.
For sure.
Then it's considerably easier for me to have everything in one space, in one familiar language, rather than in like a billion different files. But that's just me. I don't know. Pulumi is an abstraction layer that is extremely useful in this case, for me at least. I'm trying super hard not to like. If you prefer something else, there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's totally chill. This is just the way my brain works and the way I hope your brain works. But while we're on Kubernetes, Pulumi does do some pretty cool stuff specifically with Kubernetes. We do have a Kubernetes provider, but David has been doing something. David, do you want to show something off?
Yes, let's do it. So
I've stopped sharing for you.
Yep. And I think I'm sharing. Awesome. Okay. So I guess I'll show two things. Just because we were talking and I was talking about tab complete my way through a resource, is that the first thing we can do is just show that off. And then I'll show you some new libraries that are built on top of Pulumi. So I'm going to import as Kubernetes. So this is TypeScript, which is quite a nice language for doing infrastructure as code, because it's strictly typed, but also easy to work with really good tooling in VS Code, especially the language server stuff.
It's also really easy to read, yeah.
And I have Copilot, which is making
I was going to ask if you were going to use Copilot.
I'm not going to use Copilot, but it is just sitting there going, hey, I bet you're going to do a deployment.
Is it right?
Well, I don't know. Andrew, Kat, do you just want to name Kubernetes resource? I'm feeling brave, so why don't you?
You're going to let me name it?
Oh,
that's maybe a bad idea.
Do it.
Yeah. Could you name it Espresso after my cat?
Right. And do you have an object type I should create? A Kubernetes resource I could create as well?
Do you want to deploy Nginx?
No worries. So as a deployment, as a daemon set, as a stateful set, what do you want?
Daemon set.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So it's either under Kubernetes core v1. Nope, it's under apps. Okay. But I didn't really need to know that, because I'm just letting the language server fix it for me. So now that I can have a daemon set, and I'll let Copilot drop in the name. And now I'm like, okay, well, how do we describe a daemon set? Because nobody ever remembers this stuff, right?
No, I Google it every time.
I could just say, well, I know I need metadata. I know I need a spec. And here I could say, okay, we got a name. I could give it a namespace. I could use generate name, like whatever I want. And inside the spec, again, I don't know what I'm doing, but I can say, all right, so we need a selector, we need a template, we got an update strategy, and right, we'll try and work this one out. So I know template is going to lead me down the container path, and that's going to have a spec. And then we're going to have containers, and that's going to be a list of objects. And I know that because I can hover over it. And it actually tells me that we need a list of containers. And then I can auto-complete my way further. Well, my autocomplete has been a little bit weird. All right, I'll just make it up. So we'll give this a name, engine X as an image, engine X. I want an image pull policy. Hover over this and see, oh, it's never, if not present, or always. So let's go with always. And I can see by saving this that we don't actually have a valid resource yet, and this won't work because we have a red squiggle. And the red squiggle is telling me that we don't have a selector and labels to tile this together. So we need to come back in to our spec, match labels, app espresso, up all these things. I got them right? No. Okay, that's right, but now we still have one error, and that's because we're not adding the labels to the workload. So, metadata comes somewhere. I've got too many here.
This is the bane of my existence, and like I can't. This is one thing that we just like have not figured out as humans, as programmers, as application developers. A way to like clearly and consistently communicate that you are missing or have an extra curly brace.
Oof.
Yeah, there is an extension called Rainbow Braces, which I'm going to have to install now, but it makes them all different colors, and then you can see where they match up.
Oh, that's useful.
Wait, what was it called? Rainbow braces?
Yeah, Rainbow. I'm sure it's called Rainbow Braces.
Look into this.
Rainbow brackets, 1.3 million installs. Give me that.
Okay, I'm gonna find the Sublime Text version of that because
there we go. And now they're all different colors, and now I can see where they match up. So
I love that.
Amazing.
But what we got just through tab completing was a daemon set that can be deployed to our cluster. We've got no more errors, so the chances of this working are pretty good. So we can run up Pulumi up. And it's going to create me a daemon set on my Docker for Mac Kubernetes cluster. Done.
Woohoo!
Isn't that cool?
It's so cool.
That only took 3 seconds.
Yeah, that's why. Like I'm telling y'all, it's alarming how fast this can be.
Yeah, and there's loads of cool stuff. So we can do another Kubernetes demo, and then we could do a quick AWS demo. Just to show this works across pretty much all of our providers to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
Let's remove our daemon set, and back to what Kat introduced is I've been working on a project called Pulumiverse. I should really have a tab open, shouldn't I? Here we go. Now, because this is programming languages, we can just use the package manager for this. And I'm working with the Pulumi community on Pulumiverse. And one of the projects that I've been working on explicitly myself is these helpers to help give us this rich experience for working with custom resources. So one of the most common ones is, well, we want to work with Cert Manager because we need certificates of some kind. So I'm going to add this package. Pulumi verse. Kubernetes there. Let's just let that all complete. Oh. Hopefully all complete. There we go. And we can just pull in the latest version. I can run an npm install. The GitHub link thing is kind of covering up my terminal. Could we hide that, please?
Oh, yeah, the banner.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Let me.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So we've now installed this random package, and then we can just import that now. So we can do import star as cert manager from Lumiverse manager. And now I can say that I want a new issuer, which is going to be a cert manager v1 issuer. We'll call this let's encrypt fraud. And then we open up the options and we're just going to tap our way through this as well. We've got a spec, Acme, which needs an email, david@example.com. And it's telling me that we also need private key secret. Yeah. So this is just a secret, I believe. That's going to create. I can't remember. Maybe it actually needs a real secret. We'll work that out. What's next? So we can say, oh, we don't actually need anything else. This is just an issuer. All right. Okay. Let's work out this. I really need a private key secret. I should have picked something I've done before.
No.
All right. Fraud. This URL is not right, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Some weird indentation there, VS Code. I'm just going to click on this. So this is an issuer Acme spec. And we hit my sidebar. We can see we've got a Boolean for disable a key. We can skip that. The email I've got. And okay, let's see what this is supposed to be. Okay, so this takes a key and a name. So this is going to be the name of the secret, and then the key within the secret, which would just call TLS key. So now we have an issuer for cert manager, and now we can do a certificate, cert manager v1 certificate. We'll put the dev, and we're going to work our way through the spec again. Here we can see that we have a issuer ref, which is looking for the group kind and name. So call this. This is actually my issuer.metadata.name. Work that out in a minute. We need DNS names. So I'll say rocco.dev. Oh, I just opened the terminal. And we need secret name and the issuer ref. Issuer ref. No. Let's hard code this for a second. Hello. And it's not assignable because secret name is missing. All right. Okay. So secret name here. That. Oh, we actually have a valid certificate there. I've not got the best understanding of this spec, but at least I got something in the past. So, I mean, I could just use the documentation and say, okay, the issuer ref is a reference to the issuer for the certificate. If kind of fields are not set, yeah, blah, 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 blah. That's what I would expect. And the name, I feel like it should have worked. But I'm not going to try and debug that now because I've got other stuff I want to show you. But what I think is really cool here is that Pulumi provides the tools for you to actually pull down the custom resource definitions from any Kubernetes project or operator and generate an SDK that can be consumed like this via NPM, PyPy, Go, or any of the .NET languages. So, you know, we don't need YAML even for custom resources, which I think is very, very cool. All right, I'll show you one more thing and then I'm going to shut up. So let's pull in one more package because I said I would do something AWS. So we also have something called AWS X, which will npm install. And this tries to take the pain out of working with some of the AWS resources that require a lot of configuration at the bottom. So I can create a VPC, not a VPN, by doing aws.ec2.vpc. Give this a name. Let's just call it prod, because this is what production looks like. And that's it. Now, I don't need to configure anything else. I can. But what I'm going to get here is sensible default. So if I click on this, we'll actually see.
Which is dope.
That we get two subnets, one public and one private, because documentation tells me that. It sets up on 2 availability zones by default. So we get an application and a VPC that is hopefully going to be redundant or resilient. We get a NAT gateway for each availability zone by default. We get an IPv6 header block, and we get DNS support enabled, and we can tweak the DNS name for that if we want. But if we don't want to, we have a VPC that looks like something you could probably get away with in production. Lastly, we could create an ECS cluster. So I could say ECS.cluster prod. Now I have an ECS cluster. Again, this AWS package is making sure that all the defaults that make sense to just get something running are there. So it's actually going to create the VPC. It creates a cluster, adds the security groups, it creates an auto-scaling group. All of this is just done, and you get something that resembles a production-like experience with no config whatsoever. Now, would you ship this to prod? Maybe not. You would want to configure a little bit. But, for ephemeral environments and CI/CD workflows, this could be an absolute time saver. So very, very cool.
Yeah, and you can do this like the long way as well, like without AWSX, with the regular AWS provider. And it is considerably more code, but you can do it. I do that sometimes because I write Python, and AWSX is currently, it's other languages are beta, right?
Yeah, they're being worked on, and hopefully we'll have an announcement about that pretty soon.
Yeah. So if you would like to do this the long way, which does involve customizing absolutely everything and not having so many access to defaults, that is how you do it in Python. And in the third part of the cloud systems tutorial that was linked earlier, that one uses the classic provider. So it is doing it the long way. You are like defining your VPCs. You don't use defaults like this. So worth noting. But
yeah, and I think the choice is what is really cool. Like, you can do everything very explicitly, and that may be the direction that your team wishes to go. And even if you don't want AWSX, there's nothing stopping organizations creating their own AWSX package that have all that organization's defaults and giving their developers a single function to go and spin up a new environment. And that flexibility is awesome.
Yeah, you could totally just like create custom modules, custom packages that are like exclusively for use internally with your own like custom Pulumi settings, functionally Pulumi defaults. We do have a question that's like vaguely on topic. This example, what's that IDE? That's VS Code. Just with my cat sneezing. This example still looks a lot like a YAML definition. Doesn't this feel a bit like we went first full circle? We moved from doing things in imperative form to declarative, and now we're trying to do the things we do declaratively imperatively. They follow up to say, I've certainly wished that sometimes CI/CD was more imperative, so maybe a mix being both isn't a bad thing. The flexibility here is the important piece.
Yeah, so do you mind if I tackle this?
Oh yeah, go for it.
So we are 100% copying the YAML definition inside of code right now, because we're generating these rich types from the custom resource definition. However, there's also a Kubernetes X package, and if you want to create a deployment with a service, you can literally do that in like 4 lines of code without doing all the selectors, without doing all the meta tags. You can just tell it the container image, and then it's got a kind of fluent API where you do .create service, and it just does it for you. Like, you don't need to do the YAML way, but that's where we start, and then the abstractions you layer on top of that, either from Pulumi or from your own organization.
Yeah, so you get both. It's a good thing to have both.
Yep. You can have your cake and eat it.
Yeah, like we don't want to tell you that you have to do things a certain way. We want you to have the ability to do things the way that works best for you and your team. So if you want to write YAML in here, you can write YAML in here. If you don't want to write YAML in here and you'd rather deal with an abstraction, you can do that too.
Yeah, we even have a class called config YAML that allows you to load YAML from remote URLs or from a disk. So like if you really, really, really want to go that route, then you can. And you can have Pulumi generate the YAML as well. If you want to. The power is in the flexibility. And Pulumi tries to work the way that you want it to work. Although there are opinionated bits there if you want to use them.
Yeah, and if there's a weird thing you want to do that we haven't mentioned here yet, then like by all means, like open a PR. We can fit some more weird stuff in here. I'm sure. Well, chat, you got any questions for us? Andrew, you got any questions for us?
I do. Just it's a little off topic, but David, how do you get your VS Code to run so smoothly? I feel like every time I use mine, there's like little like glitches and a bit of lag here and there. But like I've never seen VS Code run so smoothly like on stream before. So I'm just curious.
It's an M1 Mac. That is the secret answer.
Okay.
Everything runs better on an M1. In fact, I haven't heard my fans on this laptop for 6 or 7 months.
I don't think I have either. But if I look at the Docker icon on my 2015 Mac, it like my fans like preemptively take off, and it sounds like my computer is gonna enter the stratosphere.
Yeah, but I've got Docker running, VS Code, and I'm talking to you through a Chromium browser, and my fans are silent.
Yeah, my M1, like I haven't been able to make it sweat yet at all. But
that's amazing.
Yeah, so cool.
It's definitely. I was really reticent when I first got it because I bought mine before before Docker support was GA on an M1, and decided I was just gonna deal with the I was just gonna deal with it. I think there were still problems with Go when I bought mine too, but we committed, and now everything's great.
Yeah, it really is.
It's really, really rare now to run into like something I need to do that's like kind of strange on an M1, but I mean it does happen, but it's unusual, and usually there's a workaround. Somebody in chat remembers the Go issues. Yeah, that was painful. That was really painful.
Yeah, sounds like that's the solution. Just get an M1.
Just get an M1.
Simple.
Just get your boss to buy you one, though. Get your boss to buy you one. Yeah. Chat, you got any more questions for us?
I know you guys have questions.
If not, that's fine too. But you're not going to hurt my feelings, but maybe a little.
Yeah, if you don't ask questions, Kat and I are going to talk about obscure Kubernetes things for the next hour. So you really want to ask some questions.
Well, David, are you excited for KubeCon?
No.
No?
Oh,
no, I am. Really? I am excited for KubeCon.
Dang.
I haven't been to a KubeCon since Barcelona, so it's going to be really nice to catch up with people, and from a social distance perspective, I'm still going to be taking it very careful and hopefully trying to keep myself COVID free. But I am looking forward to getting to KubeCon and actually seeing a talk in person for the first time in at least 2 years. So, what about you?
Yeah, and we have minimal booth duty, so we have plenty of time to watch talks. I'm very excited. Well, we'll be moderating some talks.
Yeah,
there you go.
So
it's not like we're going to be idle. We're going to be kept pretty busy, I would imagine.
Yeah, extremely. Yes. Los Angeles was a mess. Last talk I saw live was at QCon in San Francisco. Yeah, geez. It is exciting going back to in-person events. Are you going to wear the cat ears?
Of course, I'm going to wear the cat ears.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, chat, if you're going to be at KubeCon Europe in Valencia in May, come by the Pulumi booth, and maybe we'll give you a pair of cat ears.
You heard it here first. Free cat ears if you visit the Pulumi booth.
Why cat ears? My boss trusts me more than he should.
so
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, here's some budget.
Yeah, here's some money. Spend it on whatever, I guess. Yeah, and it was cat ears. It was cat ears. I spent $2,000 on cat ears.
But you know those
$2,000
cat ears are going
on
to be in
cat
high
ears.
demand. That is going to be the bit of swag
Oh yeah,
on KubeCon this year.
It's gonna be, I think that's gonna be a primo piece of swag. We're only shipping 150 of them to KubeCon, so there are only 150 pairs of cat ears available, and I will be choosy about handing them out. So no, really, just you need to have like a vaguely interesting conversation with me, and I will give you a pair of cat ears, or bring me interesting swag in trade, and I will.
There you go.
Provide cat ears, socks,
Swag
coffee
trade.
mugs, t-shirts. That's not interesting swag. Make it weird.
I will say on the Plumie swag topic. So this is a couple of years ago, but there were workshops that were going on, and if you attended a Plumie workshop, you would get a free T-shirt. But then people tried to like game the system, so like they would register with like multiple emails, and then finally there had to be a message that said, "Hey, just one T-shirt per email, so like don't try to game the system." So if anything, that just tells you how popular the Plumie swag is. Like people literally try to game the system for T-shirts.
Yeah, I mean, geez, you can just like talk to me or David on Twitter, like have a good conversation with us on Twitter, and we'll give you a T-shirt.
In fact, if you ask a question within the next 10 minutes, we'll get
free
you a
T-shirt.
Yeah. Ask a question in chat, and then like give us your email address, and we'll send you a T-shirt. Like no problem.
Yeah,
it's just
it has to be semi on topic though. Like, don't ask me what the weather's like in Scotland. Like,
what is the weather like in Scotland right now?
I don't know. It's 11 p.m. I can't see anything at the window.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, what's it going to be like in May?
In Scotland?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be there.
Well, if it's not raining and we get lucky, then it'll probably be dry and around hopefully 14 to 15 degrees Celsius.
Ooh, okay.
So not too bad. May's not their best month. June and July are obviously a lot better, but May should be all right. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think asking a question about the T-shirt counts as asking a question. But what do the T-shirts look like now? Do they have a metal vibe? Because that'd be cool. So I don't believe in T-shirts with the sleeves on. When I get a T-shirt, I cut the sleeves off, and I only wear black, etc. So while I would certainly love a metal vibe to our T-shirts, and I will go crying to my boss about it, they do not currently have a metal vibe, alas. But now I kind of want like the Pulumi logo in that like super scratchy garbage like grindcore font that was like inescapable a decade ago. Actually, I'm gonna get really annoying in Slack later, David. Yeah, I can say it's a custom.
I want that T-shirt, so I'll give that a +1. The more metal my T-shirts, the better.
There you go.
Rafa asking if this offer is retroactive. Yeah, you actually asked a great question.
Yeah.
So put your email address. I guess the only way you can do that is put that in the chat, or you can DM me via Twitch. Hold on. I'm gonna say hi in chat real quick. So send me a Twitch DM with your email address, and I'll send you a T-shirt.
It's that easy. So I mean, if there's a way to get people to ask questions, I mean, this is the way to do it.
It's free T-shirts. It's the swag. It's all about the swag. So yeah, offer stands for a few more minutes. If you have a question not related to the style of the T-shirts and would like a T-shirt, ask it, and we'll send you one. Otherwise, we're just gonna sit here and keep chit-chatting at each other. Which T-shirt is that? Just a Pulumi T-shirt. I'm not sure what they look like right now.
I believe the ones we're sending out just now are just the Pulumi logo on a chest.
They're pretty clean from what I remember. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be mad if I got a free T-shirt from Pulumi.
Although we do have some conferences coming up, Pulumi Up and Pulumi Community Summit in May, where we have special swag giveaways there, which are awesome, super cool T-shirts.
Yeah, the ones for Pulumi Up are going to be dope. Sorry if I got here late, but is Pulumi an alternative to something like Terraform then? Yes, it is. So it's infrastructure as code, just like Terraform is. But the difference is that when we say infrastructure as code, we mean using a real programming language not a DSL or something that looks like YAML. So Python, TypeScript, Go, C#, whatever, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's an alternative to Terraform or Ansible or whatever works for you. Super general question. What's y'all's favorite Pulumi feature and in the sense of using a real programming language?
Good question.
Favorite feature.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
So my favorite, I've got two Pulumi features. I'm going to cheat and talk about both of them, but they're both very linked anyway. So there's a concept called a component resource, which allows you to have like a helper class that generates more resources, but in doing so, it maintains a hierarchy. So it means you get this, like, it just tweaks the Pulumi up output, but you can actually see which resources are created because of which other resources as a tree, like the tree command on your file system. And I think that's just super cool. Plus, you get a single new call to create all of those resources, which is cool. And my other favorite feature is dynamic providers. So if there isn't a provider to go speak to the API that you want to speak to, you can actually just create a class that has 4 functions on it: create, read, update, and delete, and use like the TypeScript fetch APIs to go speak to that API. And you've got immediately access to APIs that were previously unavailable, which I think is super sweet too.
For me, it's I'm going to lean more heavily on the programming aspect of this. Is that so? Say you are you're consuming a Helm chart, right? And there's some behavior about the Helm chart that you wanna change. So you want to apply a transform. Doing this with Pulumi means that you can write like a whole ass helper function to do like real programming logic with inputs and outputs to make a transformation to that Helm chart. I have had to do this with Helm charts or CRDs in several situations where it's like returning something. It's got some kind of like output that I don't want to deal with, or I want to throw away, or I want to make a modification to the way like some field behaves, but I need that modification to rely on the result of like some other thing that's going on somewhere else in my application. That is a thing that I can do because I'm using a real programming language, and I can just write a helper function and then apply it as a transform to the Helm chart.
Nice. I want to tackle one of those other comments there. So, Kroll the Dan, you said write, not declarative. Pulumi is declarative. Now, can you write imperative code to get a declarative graph at the other side? Yeah, 100%. But you can also write declarative APIs and hide that imperative code and still get a declarative graph at the other end. So you can 100% go and write some awful imperative style code, but the best practices are there to guide you down the right path. So it's a bit of both, but still 100% declarative when needed. Crashing code asked, what's the MO for the repo one keeps the code in? Monorepo or repo per functionality? How do you do yours, Kat?
If you have asked a question, please DM me on Twitch. My username is Dixie3Flatline. I will say hi in the chat again and give me your email address. Only one person has whispered me. Hi. There you go. So that's a little reminder for everybody so that you can get your t-shirt. Thrashing code, statements like a whole ass helper function are why nobody lets me write production code anymore. Just, yeah, no, I got relegated to sample code that can't actually hurt people.
I am 100% a swear word debugger. I don't know what it is. Every time I do like a print line, I just feel the urge to get like a curse word in. It just makes me feel better when I'm debugging
it feels
problems.
like it helps. It feels like it helps. I think it helps, really. Yeah, it just sometimes you got to let the interpreter know who's boss, or the compiler, or whatever. That's why they should let you deploy to prod. That is why they don't let me deploy to prod. but that's not actually true. I'm being hyperbolic. I'm a perfectly fine programmer, but sometimes I do have profanity in my code.
Oh,
Hey.
cat. Is that espresso?
Yeah. Sorry, she wants to be involved. But that's okay. Twitch likes cats, so
Hey, nothing wrong with cats.
yeah, Twitch likes cats. So I have a couple of all right. We got t-shirts going. Okay.
Nice.
Does anybody else have questions for me or David or Espresso?
Actually, I'll throw in a question. So there's been a lot of questions around, the differences between something like Plumi, Terraform, and other tools in the market today. Is there a difference in the way Plumi handles drift in comparison to something like Terraform or maybe some of the other tools that people are using these days?
Good question. I'm just going to get you a link because we actually released a video on this just last week, and I'll talk about it so people don't actually need to. There we go. Oh, I just copied the title. Wonderful.
No worries.
Copy link. So Pulumi can handle drift, and there are 3 different ways in which you can do it. So I dropped the link into the private chat there. Now, when you run a Pulumi up, what actually happens is that it relies on the state within the state file and will only make changes if your code changes. Now, of course, we know that people like to go to portals and make random changes and click buttons and do things to make their lives a little bit easier that day without really thinking about the longer term repercussions. So Pulumi has a flag called refresh. So you can run Pulumi up -- refresh. And what this will do is take the state in the state file, reach out to the cloud providers or other resource providers, and ensure that what we have in the state is actually representative of what we have in the real world. And we'll reconcile that for you. You can do this in a CI/CD process. So we have integrations with Circle CI, GitHub Actions, and all the other major ones as well. My preferred way is, again, to bring in Kubernetes because we always need more Kubernetes. So I actually run the Pulumi Kubernetes operator, and it's a GitOps workflow that will monitor my Pulumi projects in Git. And every 4 minutes, it will reconcile and refresh the state of the world and make sure that everything is great. So I've got this constant, almost near real-time reconciliation or drift detection. And the Pulumi Kubernetes operator, you can think of it like Flux CD or Argo, any of these other tools. Only you're running Pulumi programs. And there are a lot of advantages to using Pulumi instead of basic YAML appliers, because that's what Argo CD and Flux do. They monitor, forget, they run customizer, kube control, apply. With Pulumi, we can actually introspect the cluster, pull out values, and make sure that we have a single definition of our GitOps pipeline. I can't get into that because I'll rant for the next 45 minutes about why you should only have one definition of a GitOps pipeline. More superpowers to using Pulumi across the whole stack, so to provision the platform and to provision the application. Very cool.
That's awesome. There's a comment in the chat. Do you guys discuss some security related subjects? You guys actually have a feature for this, right? Within Pulumi itself?
CrossGuard, yeah.
CrossGuard, yeah.
Yeah. So CrossGuard is a policy as code tool. Policy as code is similar to infrastructure as code in that you're like defining a thing with code that you would ordinarily define in another way. But in this case, it's things like business logic or like security rules get enforced in this way. And let me grab the docs for CrossGuard. Go. CrossGuard is its own like entire huge piece of Pulumi, so it has its own like big documentation section. I haven't used it a ton. So there is the docs for that in the chat, Andrew, if you want to throw that in Twitch. Because I think that as a regular user, I cannot post links in the Twitch chat, which is totally reasonable and fair. Oh, looks. Oh, no, you did it. Okay.
I think what's cool about CrossGuard and Pulumi's general policy as code framework is that you can make sure that people don't expose low arbitrary port numbers on their virtual machines. You can make sure that load balancers are configured correctly. You handle this at the Pulumi up time. So it's actually going to analyze the program and go, sorry, you're not actually allowed to make port 22 public to the whole world. Maybe we got a Bastion box, or maybe we only restrict it to our office IP address or whatever. There's also more security stuff in Pulumi. Pulumi uses KMS providers for all secrets as well. So you can point it to AWS KMS, and it means that key is used for all secrets within Pulumi. And what's unique to Pulumi from other infrastructure as code tools is that Pulumi also encrypts the secrets in the state file, which most other infrastructure, in fact, I think all other infrastructure as code tools do not do that. So your state file becomes something that you have to secure additionally. And with Pulumi, that's something that is kind of a moot point.
By default.
Yeah. You just have to protect access to AWS KMS, which fortunately is done by default. Pretty much. As long as you've got the right IAM roles where the policy is code, can make sure that you've also got that configured correctly as well. Pulumi tries to make their security infrastructure and security posture a lot, not easier, because that's never going to be true, but
it handles some things for you. It doesn't make things easier necessarily, but you get some tool tips, right? Like you get some suggestions of, hey, maybe this would be the way to do it, but you should always like have an actual security team whose literal job it is to like understand these things and the specific risks of your particular infrastructure setup, so that you can make sure that you're making the correct configurations. You should never be relying exclusively on defaults, IMO, ever.
100%.
But some people are going to try, but you should not.
So I guess since we've been talking about Kubernetes a lot, I would imagine this would be pretty powerful, like combining CrossGuard with something like OPA or like Kyverno with your clusters. Or is it one of those things where it's like one or the other?
No, you can layer them on. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not as familiar with the feature, so just
you totally could. They operate at different like points of like the execution of this whole situation. So
so the Pulumi policy is code with, you can make sure that no role within your Kubernetes cluster has access to Kubernetes masters, right? So we're never given out root access. If it managed to get past Pulumi through somehow, then you could also have OPA or Kyverno as an admission controller to then enforce that again. So you can layer them on. It depends on what your attack surface is and where you need to protect. And it may be that there's both, or maybe that it's just one. So yeah, no harm in using more security, the better.
Yeah, no, totally fair. Can't argue with that. Cool. Sounds good.
Anybody else?
Any other questions in chat? Quite a bunch today, I'm not gonna lie. Aside from that, anything else around Pulumi? Anything you guys are working on that you guys want to call out?
Well, we've got Pulumi up. Registration will open, I think later, like Friday, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I think registration opens for Pulumi up on Friday. So Pulumi up is our like Pulumi focused user conference that is in the beginning of May. It's May 4th and 5th, or is it 3rd and 4th?
It's the 4th, and then the community summit is on the 5th.
Yeah,
I pasted the link, Andrew, in the private chat.
Okay, awesome. And then is that in person or is that virtual?
That is virtual.
Virtual, okay.
Yeah, virtual event. So come one, come all. Registration should open Friday. Current plan is for it to open Friday. And we would love to see you. David and I will be at another conference. So if you would like to see us in person, you can find me at JFocus in Stockholm, and then DevOps Days Birmingham, where David will also be, and then at KubeCon EU in Valencia.
You're going to be so sick of me.
Am I?
You just like, I wish this Scottish guy would just fuck off.
Well, so fortunately, I can just tell you to fuck off. And I expect that you won't take that too harshly because you're Scottish. But we'll fight it out on the train from Birmingham to Glasgow.
Edinburgh.
I don't know if I'm gonna go to Edinburgh or Glasgow yet. Well, it's one or the other. But yeah, we'll fight it out on the train up.
Looking forward
After
to
being
it.
stuck, like working together in person for like 3 days at DevOps Days.
Oh, it's gonna be fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too. I've never been to a DevOps Days in person before because I like became a thing like a year before the pandemic started, and I never got to go to a DevOps Days. So this is my first DevOps Days, and it is DevOps Days Birmingham's first event. So I expect it to be, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I also didn't know that they actually had in-person events because, you know, when I found out about it, it was all virtual. So that's all I know. So that's cool.
Yeah, a bunch of events are starting to happen in person, though we're all being very careful about it. Most events have like masking and vaccination requirements and testing requirements. I personally don't attend an event unless they have those requirements in place.
Totally fair.
So does anyone have a link to the event? The one I'm talking about is DevOps Days Birmingham, but the one that we want to hustle for is Pulumi Up.
Let me repost that. Just repost it in chat.
Thank you. So being careful doesn't seem like the MO of society these days. No, but we're being as careful individually as we can in spite of our respective governments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have a duty to each other, like especially at these events where there's lots of us and we're in relatively close quarters and we're mingling and socializing. Like really, it's respect each other's decisions. If people are wearing masks and don't want to hug, then
totally fine.
Yeah, give them a wave. We've all got different circumstances and conditions at home, so let's just respect each other and have fun.
Yeah, KubeCon has a stoplight system of these like little rubber bands that go on your around your badge, and green is like, yes, I'm fine with physical contact. You can come, ask for a hug or whatever. Yellow is like, stay away from me, but I'll give you like an elbow bump or like a fist bump or something. And red is like, do not touch me in any way. Stay 6 feet away. And I think that's a great way to handle it. Personally, I am team yellow. Do not hug me, but I am more than willing to give you a fist bump or an elbow bump or like a high five or whatever. But I also don't care if somebody's wearing a green one or a red one. That's your business.
Yep.
But
and then you guys also mentioned you guys are giving some talks. You guys talk about that, or is that still in progress?
Oh, talks. So I'm speaking at JFocus. I think, David, you're speaking at DevOps Days Birmingham, right?
I am. I'm doing a talk on what I learned from fixing 50 broken Kubernetes clusters.
Ooh,
amazing.
Spicy. At JFocus, I will be giving a talk about what I think is like kind of unintentionally gatekeepy about the tech industry. I'm not talking about like active decisions we make to keep people out because of something we don't like about them, because they're like from some underrepresented group. I'm talking about things that we do accidentally and like we don't realize we're doing, but it does like artificially make entry into the industry or staying in the industry harder for some people than it should. So I'll be talking about things like how much jargon we use and how like hesitant we are to explain or like define our jargon. How mentorship has kind of like gotten broken or doesn't really seem to exist as much in tech as it used to. And about how like weird our hiring practices have gotten, and specifically how like completely like unhinged our job postings have gotten. And every time I give this talk, I go find a new like fresh terrible job posting for like a junior DevOps engineer or like a junior SRE. And let me tell you, it is not hard to find like a completely busted job rec. So that is what I will be ranting at people about for 40 straight minutes with a captive audience. They're stuck with me. They have no choice. They just have to listen to me yell. Love it.
Oh man. That's actually a good question. If you had to give someone advice on how to like break into the industry for tech, What piece of advice would you give someone that's kind of in the process but not really sure how?
Depends. Who are they?
Let's just say they're like a junior developer and they're just trying to break their way into tech.
Are they from an underrepresented group in any way? Because that changes my advice.
I'm gonna say yes.
Find somebody older than you and more experienced than you and meaner than you who has the same like disadvantages you currently have, and stick to them like glue. That's not difficult to do, like with like Twitter or like local meetup groups or whatever. We are very social, and we're also very loud and very mean, because you are going to experience some things in the beginning that are disadvantages and you don't know it. So, for instance, I see this a lot with like new developer advocates. They don't know that they can ask for things like not being forced to fly economy on an 11-hour trans-Pacific flight. They don't know that they can ask for that. Sometimes, every once in a while, you like might see an event try to get a speaker to pay for their own badge for the conference.
Really? Oh,
and that's you don't have to put up with that. So you need somebody older and meaner than you who has the same disadvantages you have or similar disadvantages to tell you when you are getting screwed over and help you navigate not getting like taken too much advantage of, because you don't know what you don't know.
I actually really appreciate that sentiment, because that is to the T how I got into tech. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because I think I could not echo that more. Now let me flip that. What if it's someone that's not, obviously in an underrepresented like group that's trying to get into tech?
Whiteboarding interviews are hot garbage, and you're going to have to do them, and they're not going to like teach anybody anything about how to how you are to work with, which I think is actually more important than how well you code. Is like, what are you like to work with? So unfortunately, yes, you really do have to grind lead code like it's your job.
Yeah.
It's not fun. And also randomly applying to jobs just through like a jobs portal or whatever, that is not super likely to get you a job. Making like personal connections with people and networking through like local community events and meetup groups is going to be more likely to get you a job than just randomly applying to whatever on LinkedIn or Indeed. But it's worth it. My perspective on this is a little bit skewed because I didn't graduate from college. And so most of the like getting into tech advice I give is predicated on that. If you did graduate from college, you probably already have like a network. You may have done an internship even. So you might be showing up with experience that like the people that I generally mentor don't have. So it's a little bit of a different ballgame, but generally it's, yes, we know that the interview process blows. We know.
Yeah, that's could not say it better myself. Oh man. Dave, what about yourself? What advice would you give to someone that's junior dev looking to break into the industry, but really not sure how?
I mean, I'm not going to answer that question after Kat's amazing answers. What I would say is that senior developers need to do more too. Like the norms in this industry are fucked up. Like
Deeply.
We need to start saying that we don't know stuff publicly in a room with junior developers and make them know that it's all right to say that. And then that we Google the same shit every single week. Like I look up Kubernetes stuff multiple times per day. And the norms that we have are around this concept of a hero developer, which nobody is. And we need to fix this.
We're better at Googling it.
That is the difference. I will be the first to admit I'm constantly on Google looking up stuff up. Like it's very rare even for me to remember anything. So yeah.
You know what? I've been writing Python for a decade, and every once in a while I forget whether it's if name is main, like the is operator, or if it's is name equals main, if name equals main. Every once in a while I forget that and I have to Google it. And that's like, why did that fall out of my brain? But it does. And I've been writing Python for a decade. Like, it's just stuff. Like, we don't know stuff either. We're just like, we Google slightly faster. We Google more intuitively.
Yeah, the people that do this well are the people that have made the most mistakes, right? Nobody
Yeah,
that is
for
in
sure.
senior positions has magically just floated through 15 years of knowing the answer. Like
Oh
that,
yeah.
we make mistakes, we learn from them, and we do a really shitty job of teaching and passing that and paying it forward. And that's something that we need to change. So I'd encourage senior developers to do more of that and to fight that hiring process. Like if you're giving a junior developer a whiteboard or code interview, I mean, if you can't sit down with them and have a conversation to understand what their technical capability is, maybe you're not a senior developer. Maybe that's a hot take, but I'm throwing it out
No,
there
I don't think it's a
anyway.
hot take
No,
at
I
all. I
feel
think
good
it's
about
totally
that.
fair.
I feel good about that. Yeah. Like I think that if you are a senior developer and you're like letting the juniors on your team like stay stuck for too long, or you're just like sitting there watching them struggle, you're not actively trying to help them, actively trying to teach them like how to do things like better and more efficiently without being an asshole about it, then you're actively not doing your job. Like part of your job as a senior engineer is to be a mentor for the juniors on your team. And if you're not doing that, like that's just you're not doing your job. It's literally part of your job.
I need like a 100 plushie I can hold up for statements like that. I'm gonna have to buy one of those on Amazon.
Yeah, this is for sure a hill I'm willing to die on, and I can like get up on a soapbox about this particular issue at like a moment's notice. So I'm glad you're on the same page, David, because this really pisses me off.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah, I couldn't plus one anything more that you guys just said, so that's great.
Thank you.
Aside from that, let's see, we're about an hour and a half in. Anything else you guys want to talk about? You know, it doesn't have to be tech. You can talk about whatever. Unless people in the chat have more questions or comments. Let's see.
Yeah, chat, what you got going on? Let me see.
The real programmer's title, search engine professional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually also really good at reading documentation, so I would consider myself like at least a senior level docs reader. Now, whether or not I can actually like immediately apply that information is another issue entirely, but I can read the hell out of some documentation.
There you go.
Let's see. Favorite drink while Zen coding IAC? Beer.
All right, what kind of beer?
Whatever is available.
Whatever.
As long as it's not a Hefeweizen. I don't like Hefeweizens or wit beers.
Okay.
So I like stouts. I like porters. I like IPAs. I like sours a lot. I had a thing on vacation recently called a wee heavy, which was very nice.
A wee heavy?
Yeah. Some Icelandic brewery had one, and I guess it's a Scottish thing, but it was good. Some kind of Scotch ale. It was nice.
Yeah, we would call Scotch ale a wee heavy in Glasgow. I can't drink beer while I'm coding though. I get like beer fog after maybe like 2 or 3 beers. So if I'm like wanting to code for a longer period of time, then it would be bourbon or whiskey. Like that I could do an 8-hour stretch. Yeah. But beer after the second one, I'm like, I just want to watch Netflix and lie.
It's the opposite for me. Like if I sit there drinking, like if I sit there drinking bourbon or whiskey, I get real rowdy real quick.
You're rowdy.
Yeah, I get rowdy. So that's like not at all conducive to writing code for me. But 2.5 beers is my like ideal time for writing code. 2.5 beers in, and I'm convinced that I'm untouchable. So the Balmer peak for me is at 2.5 beers.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can get Palumi beer or whiskey as a swag for an event.
I mean, there are so many breweries in Seattle. I'm sure I think Elysian does custom labeling. Yeah, we could get some Palumi beers from Elysian, surely. How do you get budget to buy ridiculous swag? So I haven't screwed up yet, is what happens. Like I had one harebrained idea early on about swag, and it was ponytail holders. Because I have long hair and I'm always like losing my ponytail holders, and I'm not the only person in the tech industry with long hair. So I threw a huge fit and was like, we need Palumi ponytail holders. And then it was outrageously successful. So I like that's what happened, I guess. Like I had one good harebrained idea, and then they gave me more money. We'll see how it goes with the cat ears. If the cat ears take off as well, then I think I'm going to start like testing the waters and seeing like how much money I can spend on absurd swag before like the C-suite gets involved. So I don't know, David, if you could have some like absurd swag, what would you get? What would you want?
I don't know. You can't drop that question on me.
It's kind of hard to beat the cat ears, to be fair. That's pretty good. Like, did they say Palumi on it, or is it just like
they say Palumi on them? Yeah.
Okay.
They're straight up company branded cat ears.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard to beat. I don't know how you beat that.
I don't know. I keep wanting like joggers or like slides or something. Like I'm really tired of getting like hoodies and t-shirts and socks at conferences. So
yeah. I wouldn't mind an Apple Watch strap that says Palumi on it.
An Apple Watch strap? Oh, yeah. Okay. It's bougie. That would be
different.
It's very bougie.
I only found out what that word meant like a month ago because I think you used it in Slack.
And you had to Google it?
I had to Google it.
Oh, David. Oh, it's okay. I don't mind being the millennial translator for the team. It's fine. I'll do that happily. I have to do that for Maddie, our coworker, Matt Stratton. Sometimes he will text me with a piece of slang one of his kids used and ask for an explanation. So it's fine. I don't mind doing that, but I'll try to limit slang like that around you, David. If you
are gonna have to Google learn. You have to like keep using it so I can keep making notes, and then
I guess. But how have you been on Twitter and like this active for this long without running into Bougie? I feel like Bougie has been around for a while.
Has it?
Yeah, like years.
Yeah, I think maybe I need to expand my Twitter following.
Maybe if I say Chugi, do you know what that means?
Say it again.
Chugi. If I say Chugi, do you know what that means?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. All right.
You just gonna leave that there?
It means like lame, like old, kind of.
Wait, sorry. What was this again?
Chugi.
Yeah, I've never heard this one before, so this is news to me.
Okay, so
Chugi,
I guess yeah, because it's slang discourse hour on AWS Howdy Partner. Yeah, I'm. I don't know. David, go through my following list and pick some like anybody with like an anime profile picture or like cat ears. Just follow them, and learn some words
on it.
But they're mostly like unhinged C programmers. So if you don't want like a bunch of unhinged C programmers on your timeline, then maybe don't follow the people with cat ears.
No, I think I will. I think I need to change.
Yeah. Okay.
Really, my Twitter's boating. So.
Well, there's gonna be some truly cursed C and C++ on your timeline. It brings them joy, I think, to write bad C and get a reaction out of people, but it is extremely fun to watch. Well, chat, you got anything else for us?
Going once, going twice.
So they should all go to Palumi.com and sign up for a free account.
Yeah, you should do that.
Start kicking the tires on it and reach out to Kat and I on Twitter if you need any help whatsoever.
Yeah, please do. We're happy to. We will literally get on Zoom with you if you need help with something, or you can just like send us your code and we'll take a look at it.
Perfect. Well, aside from that, thank you both so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. That was good.
Yeah.
Aside from that, just real quick, you guys mentioned Palumi Up, so that's happening. Registration comes out. You said this Friday.
Yeah.
Cool. And then both your Twitter handles are on the screen. So if you guys want to reach out to them, please do so. Aside from that, anything else you guys want to call out? Anything coming up that you guys want to shout out in the chat, have people to take a look at?
David?
I mean, I'll be 100% selfish and tell people to go to rockwood.live and check out my YouTube channel where you can see me breaking and fixing Kubernetes clusters all day.
All day long. I don't have a personal website that I update regularly. I just tweet every stupid thought that pops into my head, whether it's related to technology or not. So,
But that's what Twitter's for.
that's what
So
Twitter's
yeah,
for. That's what Twitter's
Yeah,
for.
exactly.
I do post pictures of my cat and videos of my cat. She's very, very cute. So if you want cat pictures, you should follow me on Twitter. She's in my lap right now, trying to crawl like up into my armpit, but she wants attention.
There you go. But cool. Aside from that, thank you both so much for coming on. All the links are in the chat. But aside from that, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Logging off.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Take care. Bye.